Today we're going to taste a regular Sazerac release against a Sazerac store pick release. This video is actually for my Patreon. If you are in the Patreon, then you got samples of both of these bottles and you can taste them with me right now. So if you haven't done it already, go ahead and pour these out into a glass and we're going to go over the two of them. I got some notes in front of me here that I spent some time with these to try and pick out the differences because quite honestly, the differences are very subtle. But I wanted to do this with you guys because I wanted to kind of answer the question over the next 3 different offerings that we're going to be doing. Is the store pick version of a bottle really worth buying? Because in this particular instance, Sazerac is a very inexpensive rye, and we're going to ignore the secondary for just a minute. Sazerac rye is a $25 to $40 bottle. A Sazerac store pick rye is probably going to start at $40 and go up from there. This particular bottle was about $40. I got this particular bottle for about $25. So it is a pretty significant difference in percentage of price. So is it worth doing or should you just grab the regular offering? First, Sazerac rye is a 51% rye, 39% corn, and 10% malted barley mash bill. It's a great mash bill. It is just a little ways away from being a high rye bourbon. It's actually flipped around to be the rye. It's a delicious offering. It's reasonably priced. It does have a little age to it, even though they do not share the age statement on it. And I think you can't go wrong with grabbing a Sazerac rye. This barrel pick is from Bourbon Wine and Spirits. My boy Eli, shout out to Eli here in Roseville. He tends to pick things on the sweet side and likes to pick things that are just a little bit off profile. So I thought it would be an interesting comparison. So if you got your bottles poured out, go ahead and have them side by side like I do. And let's get started talking about the standard Sazerac rye first. In the meantime, if you're watching this and you do not subscribe to my channel and you are not a patron, please like, comment, and subscribe. Maybe think about going over and checking out my Patreon because you get to do cool stuff like this and a lot of other things too. It's a pretty good time. If you're watching my videos, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, by the way, I forgot, I'm Conrad. So on the standard Sazerac rye, let's start with the standard Sazerac rye. So if you hit the nose on the standard Sazerac rye, I always get a citrus note. It comes across as an orange to me. If you're nosing this, you're not super experienced with nosing, what I'm going to encourage you to do is try to pass from one side to the other. Kind of breathe, put your nose a little further in, a little further out. Maybe even I've seen a technique where you will hold one side of your nostril. I don't typically do that, but it might help you to discover things. I also will tend to take just a little bit into my mouth and then smell again. Your taste buds and your sense of smell are very closely related to each other. So I always get orange on this. I also get spicy notes of that are planty, I guess would be the best way to do it, like clove, anise, which would be the seed, if you've never seen one, that they use for licorice. So it can come across as licoricey, but a little more plant-based licoricey, less artificially black licoricey note. I also get a bit of a sweet raisin note. It's almost like a dark fruit note, but a little bit drier, for lack of a better word. It is very difficult to describe smells verbally or tastes verbally. So you guys notice I do a lot of tasting notes. Tasting notes are kind of bullshit, but what you're trying to do is I'm trying to describe to you, or anybody else is doing tasting notes, trying to describe to you what the smells or tastes are reminding me of, what they're reminiscent of. And sometimes they're very specific and very direct. On this one, I actually get orange. I actually get clove. The raisin note is more of a mental thing that is making a connection for me. When you go to take a sip, it is best to take a small sip, let it roll across your tongue. You want to hit the tip, the middle, and the back of your tongue before you swallow so you can get every part of the taste buds, because your tongue has different taste buds in different areas to give you different sensations. I always kind of roll it around in my mouth a little bit. Some people would do what's called chewing, which is where you kind of just move it around in your mouth a little bit. This one is not dry. The finish is not super long, but it does dissipate very quickly. So it gives you a second to kind of sit with it a little bit. It does sit on the palate for just a second. I get stone fruits, which are fruits with seeds in the middle. I get apricot, peachy note kind of on this one. Now, don't be afraid if you don't get the same things that I do. you're not always going to get the same things. What you've eaten for the day, how hydrated you are, just your particular palate is going to vary. You're going to get different things sometimes, but try to come up with the things that I come up with to see if you can get them. If you're getting something different on the nose or on the palate, please put it in the comments. It's very interesting to see. Sometimes people will come up with something that I did not come up with, and I'd love to come back and revisit it and see if I can get that note. So I'm getting caramel and vanilla. Obviously, there's a high corn content to this. For the 39% corn content, so you're going to get some of those caramel and vanilla notes that you would get on a traditional bourbon. I like that sweet, spicy balance on this. Sazerac rye is very solid. It's not super interesting, but it would be a great beginner's rye because the rye notes are not, the spicy notes are not super big, and the sweet notes are there to balance it out. The finish is kind of short to medium. I'm getting a licorice note, kind of actually is a sweet licorice note now with a little bit of plum and dark fruit, a little bit of black pepper on the end there. Sazerac rye is a very good, easy drinking bargain selection that I suggest that everybody that's new to whiskey starts with, and a lot of people that are very experienced with whiskey will stick with. They actually like it. A lot of fans of the Sazerac rye. So let's compare that to the barrel proof. So if you've got your barrel proof, if you're a patron, you've got your barrel proof from Eli, let's get into this and specifically keep in mind and try to look for the things that are different from the other Saz. You can go back and forth, but what you're going to want to kind of try to do is visit this one and look for the things while it's still a little on your palate. When you start to jump back and forth, it gets a little bit more difficult. It can help, but it can also convolute things a little bit. So I would encourage you to spend a minute with this before you jump back. So on the nose. So on the nose on this one, I got a syrupy note that I made a note here that it came across as a dark black cherry and cola. That was not on this one. Now that fits with what I know about Eli. He likes sweet notes. He likes cola notes. He likes to pick those things out. It's interesting because the 10% barley on this doesn't give me a lot of barley influence, which is surprising. Usually with the 10% barley, I get a lot of those malty barley notes, but I really don't on this one. If you do, please put it in the comments. On the palate, I'm getting a lot of those same things that I got on the other one. But it seems to me like the prickly notes are a little bit more taken back. They're actually taking kind of a backseat to the sweeter notes. And I'm also getting a cola note that's maybe even coming across as a bit of a Dr. Pepper note, which would kind of make sense with kind of a plum and cola note together. The raisin could be prune. It's very interesting that that's in there. I'd be curious to see if you guys are getting that. Or if that note is coming across as something different to you. There's definitely a difference here. It's very subtle. But I've noticed that the green notes, the minty notes are pulled back a little bit. The spice that comes with rye is pulled back. You could almost convince me that this is more of a high rye bourbon, that the mash bill is different, even though I know that it's different. Now, this is a single barrel, which means this blended product, they took a single barrel out of the line, and Eli picked this out based on the flavor profile of this. They are the same thing. These are just blended down to a specific profile, and this bucks that profile to give you what it had going on naturally in that barrel. I think because of that's very interesting. So I'm getting a kind of a rye bready note on the finish. I think because the spice is pulled back a little bit, that sweetness allowed to jump up, and those green notes that were on this in the end there, that kind of minty spiciness, I think I wrote down pepper, is drawn back a little bit. I'm getting more of a sweet rye bready type. It's rye for sure, but it's a lot sweeter. I really like this a lot. I'm not getting the mintiness to it. It's a good pick by Eli. I like the mellowness to it. I like the sweetness to it. I'm going to go back to the other one just as a comparison. I would encourage you to do the same. Yeah. So for me, this leans more into the rye spice, minty clovey notes, and Eli's pick leans more into syrupy, cola sweet notes, It pulls back the rye a little bit. It's definitely still there, so it's not unbalanced, but you can see it. These two tilt the scale. This one slightly more towards those sweet syrupy notes. This one slightly more towards those rye clovey notes. And it does make for a unique, interesting single barrel experience. So, I don't know how you guys feel about it. For me particularly, I really like Eli's pick. I would be hard pressed to say that it is absolutely 100% worth the extra money, but I'm going to lean that direction. I would say if you're picking up Saz for 30 bucks and Eli's pick is 40 bucks, which is pretty close. This is a little less than that. Then it might be worth doing to get this. I am going to say that I think that this is a better neat sipper. It's a little nicer to sip on, whereas I think this one might be better for cocktails. If I was making a Sazerac cocktail, I'm going to want to use the Sazerac, the regular Sazerac, because I want that spicy pop in there to bring out those notes to come out in that cocktail. So, patrons, I hope you guys enjoyed this. We're posting this up. We're going to do this live, but this is the posted recap tasting, so you can come back to this anytime you want, revisit it. Please, please, please put in the comments what you're getting. Are you getting what I'm getting on this? Are you getting what I'm getting on that? What do you think the differences are? And do you think that a single barrel store pick in this instance is worth spending the money on, or will you just pick up the regular Sazerac rye? Or are you one of those people that lives in an area where you can't get both anyway? And this whole thing was just a big giant tease because now you love Sazerac rye and you can't even get it. I'm Conrad. This is Whiskeybonded. Like, comment, and subscribe. Please check out my Patreons. You can get to do this cool stuff. If you're not a patron, you could have been watching this video with a Sazerac rye and a Sazerac rye store pick in your hands and going, that guy on that video is full of shit. I don't get that at all. If you're watching this video, it's too late to join the Patreon for this tasting, but if you are a patron and on the higher levels, I will be posting the video for the Weller store pick and the Hirsch store pick comparison here pretty soon. So look for it on my YouTube and share this with somebody that might be interested. I appreciate that. It means a lot. So